The RTX 40 series, based on Nvidia's Ada Lovelace architecture, have been on the market for almost about a year now, and it's about that time where the GPU rumor mill is starting to get the ball rolling on the next big thing for GeForce. Some specs were quote-unquote leaked pertaining to the next-gen flagship, the RTX 5090, and some of the details here will raise some eyebrows. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. The timing on this was peculiar. The RTX 40 series was first unveiled last year on September 20th, 2022, and just yesterday we start to see a considerable amount of information hit the web pertaining to their next generation graphics cards. We've talked about Blackwell not too long ago on the channel, but there wasn't too much information on it in regards to the specifications and performance. But now, thanks to our infamous hardware leaker on Twitter, Kopite7kimi, we've got some info, and at a first glance, this may seem unexpected to you, and if it does, then you're probably not looking at the bigger picture here, and we're gonna get into that later on in the video. First, I wanted to show you guys the video cards article on their site, and this was the first rumor that popped up, and I say rumor because at the end of the day, it's just really speculation. You can't validate where the info is coming from. Now, I'm not calling them a complete liar, but grain of salt and caution is required. It's interesting to note here that they mentioned Blackwell is poised to be the successor to Ada Lovelace, and in contrast to the Hopper/Ada architecture, Blackwell is going to extend its reach across both data center and consumer GPUs. So previously they had two architectures running down simultaneously, one for their consumer business like your gaming graphics cards or professional users like Quadro, and then they had Hopper for the enterprise HPC segment. I think prior Ampere spanned across both sectors, and then before that we had Turing for consumers and Volta for data centers. Now, the more interesting part of this article was when they talk about how there's not going to be any significant changes to the core counts, but a significant restructuring to the GPU architecture. Kopite mentions that although the number of units, GPCs and TPCs in Blackwell will not increase significantly, there are significant changes in its unit structure. Along with that, they mention how Blackwell's top SKU, which will be GB100, should have twice as many cores as GB102, so that's a pretty significant jump even going from a 102 to 100 die. But how this will happen is if they end up using two GB102 dies. According to Kopite, GB100 is going to utilize an MCM design, which will be the first time they bring a GPU like this to market. Now, just because their top-end product, which will be utilized for data centers, is using MCM doesn't mean that lower-end SKUs are going to be doing so as well, and really Nvidia has no need to be doing MCM for mainstream GPUs. So don't expect that next gen you're going to see an MCM 5070. It's just not going to happen. In addition to the information Kopite shared here, we also got some more quote-unquote leaks from a user on the ChipHell forums known as Panzerlied. This user was the one who had recently mentioned that Nvidia is going to be dropping the 104 or 204 SKUs and will go from the 203 to the 205 die. I think for Blackwell they said that because it will also be used in the data center, the 10X dies will be used for that segment, whereas the 20X dies will be used for the general consumer gaming segment. As for the meat and potatoes of the leak, they didn't share any hard numbers, just percentages relative to the RTX 4090, so I mean, you can take that for what you will. This could just allude to them doing some, rough napkin math. So they mentioned that there will be a 50% increase in cores, 52% increase in memory bandwidth, which could imply they're going GDDR7, or that they could be using a significantly wider memory bus. Kopite did also share a while back that the flagship Blackwell GPU would be utilizing a 512-bit memory bus, and this could be more likely as opposed to them using GDDR7 because from what I heard, Samsung's GDDR7 won't be available by the time they're going to start mass producing these GPUs. Moving on, and we also have a 78% increase in cache, which is more likely a bump in L2, a 15% increase in frequency, which is pretty underwhelming, and we also don't know if they're comparing this against a stock 4090, which I think they most likely are. So all of this amounts to a 1.7x improvement, which is alluding to performance. I gotta say that I'm skeptical about that 1.x improvement figure. First of all, you gotta ask yourself, where is that 1.7x figure even coming from? Was it a specific synthetic benchmark, a specific game, a CUDA workload? Was it an overall average? You have to remember that the way Nvidia will market these cards is how they've enticed people in the past. They'll either introduce a feature or use something that even the 4090 struggles with right now and then highlight that feature as being dramatically faster. Blackwell could be an architecture that destroys Ada Lovelace in path tracing, and when enabled, the 5090 could be like double the performance. And Nvidia will do stuff like that because they know that if they showed both cards doing just, regular old raster performance, then yeah, sure, the 5090 would be faster, but the 4090 would also be putting up some crazy high figures as well, just making them look like a EP measuring contest at that point. So they're going to use something that only Blackwell will excel at, and that will be what their whole marketing will be revolving around. I remember when the 40 series launched, they were showing Cyberpunk Overdrive comparisons to last gen, and when they used DLSS, frame gen was enabled on the 40 series because the 30 series can't do frame gen, making it seem like it was, over 4 times faster, and that clearly worked on a lot of people. Let's circle back to the specs they mentioned, and the reason why I said I was skeptical about the 1.7x improvement is because when we compare the specs of the 4090 versus a 3090 and consider the performance gap between those cards, then you'll see why this 1.7x improvement may not be likely or perhaps isn't how fast it'll be overall on average. I have done a head-to-head benchmark video showcasing the 4090 against the 3090 in 42 games, and if we were to take out the CSGO result, then the 4090 was on average around 75% faster than the 3090, and both of the cards were overclocked at 4K. When comparing the 4090 against the 3090 in terms of specs, we can see that there's a increase of 1.5x for the amount of cores, so that's similar to what this leaker on Chip Hell is talking about. Memory bandwidth didn't improve that much since the 4090 has the same memory configuration, just overclocked. However, with the 4090 you had 12x more L2 cache, which is a much larger improvement compared to the 1.78 on the Blackwell GPU that they're citing here, and given that figure, it's most likely going to be using 128 megabytes. And clock speeds were also another area where we saw a much larger improvement with the 40 series, which did help immensely in regards to performance. I'm so glad I had done this video as well, but I did actually benchmark 18 games with my 4090 downclocked to 2 GHz to see what would have happened if Nvidia never got the clock speed bump that they did with Ada Lovelace, and well, even with the 4090 at 2 GHz, it was still around 44% faster on average compared to the 3090 at 2 GHz as well. If the Blackwell GPU is only going to be clocking around 15% higher than the 4090, and let's be generous and say it'll clock up to around 3.2 to 3.4 gigahertz, maybe 3.5 after tuning, then that alone wouldn't be a huge contributor to this 1.7x performance improvement. If they're just taking a cherry-picked result, then I could see the 5090 being around 50 to 55% faster, but I'm not so sure about the 1.7x increase. Then again, I'm mainly just going off based on the specs, and if what Kopite said is true, that they're going to be significantly changing the unit structure, then Blackwell could have some major architectural advantages that aren't being highlighted just from these numbers alone. But personally, I would just keep my expectations low, and the reason why I say that is because Nvidia will have no competition in the high-end space. Along with that, if AMD really isn't going to be competing in the high-end next generation, then Nvidia has no incentive to make this flagship dramatically faster than the 4090, especially when AMD can't really touch the 4090 except for some rare instances where the game is poorly optimized for one vendor and heavily favors the other. The RTX 5090 could just end up being 40 to 50% faster on average, so not as comparable to that large leap we saw going from a 3090 to a 4090, but hey, as long as they have that one killer marketing feature like frame generation, then that will be enough to incentivize people to upgrade. And consumers who are in this space, especially this high-end enthusiast segment, are people who will always upgrade to the next big thing, even if it's not a huge performance uplift. As long as you tell them it's the fastest, it's the best, then they won't hesitate to pull out their wallets. Even if Nvidia decides to increase prices, which I have a good feeling they will in this segment, they'll still buy it. I personally can see them charging upwards of $2,200 for the 5090, and the 5080 could be the same price as what the 4090 is going for right now. Then if you want anything lower, you can just buy last gen stuff, or they'll point you towards AMD or Intel. You just gotta look at the bigger picture here. Nvidia isn't focused right now on the gaming side of things. Gamers are at the bottom of the priority list right now. This is why I said at the beginning of the video, don't be shocked to learn that Blackwell isn't going to be a huge performance leap over Ada Lovelace. For the 50 series, it's going to be minor performance increases, larger memory buffers, so they'll fix that, along with a new exclusive software or AI feature, and price hikes to justify it all at the end. Something that's actually on my wish list is to see power consumption go down, or at the very least, them realize that, hey, we don't need to push these cards so hard out of the box. Let's actually keep them in that performance per watt sweet spot, that curve. For those that want to overclock, they can do so, but I'd much rather see the cooler configurations be brought back down to earth, because that will actually help a little bit with cost, because with lower TDPs, you can build smaller coolers. Anyways guys, that will wrap it up for this one. Still fairly early to be talking about the RTX 50 series and Blackwell, but now that we've hit that 1 year mark with Ada Lovelace, the ball has gotten rolling on the next generation series, so expect more quote-unquote leaks and rumors to surface the web. But I just wanted to put this brief overview video out there and give my thoughts on everything. If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.